Hello, guys. Welcome to my Factorio. Um, I'll call it Factorio Basics tutorial. This is just a tutorial to help you kind of figure out how you're going to set up your first game. So let's say you've never played the game before. This is your first time opening it. You see this screen. What do you do? Okay, well, so we've got a couple of options here. Obviously, you're going to want to click play when you're going to want to play, right? So there's a map editor. With this, you can build maps that you can play on later. You can go into the options. You can change your graphics. You can change the volumes of things and the sounds, options, controls. You can tell what everything does. This is important. Uh, it would be good to familiarize yourself with these controls. But even if you don't like read through all these, you'll you'll eventually pick them up as you play the game. And then other these are just settings that are um, like your single player autosave interval. So uh, if you want your saves to be further apart, you can increase this from, these are all default for me. You can increase it beyond 2 minutes. Um, you got some other things like automatically enable new mods. So if you download any mods, then they'll start out enabled. You can, if you don't have this one checked, show tips and tricks at the start of the game, you should probably check this, and it will give you, let's do it, and it'll give you um, a couple of tips and tricks. Um, then there's the mods. You come in here and you can install mods. You click that and it will load the mod portal, which is basically just a huge list of, wow, this is taking a long time to load. Basically it's just a huge list of, yeah, here it is. It's a huge list of every single mod that you can put in the game. And I'm not gonna say that it's every single mod that you can put in, because I don't know if there are mods on here that are, or if there are mods out there that aren't on here. So for us though, we're not gonna deal with any of these yet. But if you find yourself wishing there was more to the game, there is plenty for you to add. And then in here, if you have any mods, what you can do is you click on one, you click toggle. Right now it's disabled. If I click toggle, it'll enable it. But I'm not going to do that because it requires you to restart. And if I go to about, it tells you your version. It tells you the release. So mine's the Steam release. You can have the non-Steam game because that's what I had before, but then I ported over to Steam, right? Because Steam is helpful. There's a change log to tell you about all the different releases. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into it. You got all these options. There's a campaign to the game, which just takes you through a couple scenarios where you have to like, you crash landed and you have to get to your ship, or you have to make so much of this, right? And if you do the campaign, that might help kind of get you oriented. But what most people do is just click new game. You could replay a game if you've finished and you have a replay that you can watch. Because if you click new game, there's an enable replay option. So if you do that, then you can come out here and do replay game on one of your games. You can do custom scenario, which these scenarios are like different ways to play the game. So instead of just having like a open sandbox world, some of these, like this base supply scenario, has a bunch of chests, and there are challenges where you have to produce so much steel and put it in these chests by 15 minutes or something. This team production one was a really fun server that I don't think is around anymore, where you're on a team and you have to produce, everyone has the same goal, and the first team to produce it wins points, right? You can load a game. You can go into multiplayer, where you can create a multiplayer game. You can create it from a custom scenario. You can play on LAN, connect to a server directly, or you can just browse the public games, which will pull up a list of all the public games that are running right now. You can sort this list. If you click on name, it'll sort it backwards alphabetically, or um, using the Unicode for each character, but it's basically alphabetical. But like symbols will come before numbers, before letters, I mean. If you click on players, it'll start from 0, it'll list them by least players, but if you click again, it'll list them from most. So if you're looking to play with a lot of people, you can click this till it has this down arrow. Or you can try and join a new map, or a really old map. Like this one is almost 3,000 hours old. That is insane. And it's got a password. I guess I have no idea about that server. But anyway, you can refresh. You can click join game when you want to join. You can say yes, I want to join a passworded server, or no, I don't want one that has a password. It can't have any mods because I don't have any mods, right? Or yes, it has to have mods. Or yes, my Steam friends have to be in game. I have no friends in real life, so this will never have any servers for me. Or you can say no, and that will have every single server. You can go back out of multiplayer. Those are the basic things. So what we're going to do is we're going to click new game. And then we get to this map generator screen. And we've got 3 categories: frequency, size, and richness. And these are a little the names are a little bit confusing because they don't mean what you think they mean, to a degree, because richness and size do, but frequency isn't what you might think. So in this frequency option, we've got very low, low, normal, high, and very high. And the idea behind frequency is if you put it to very low, then over the course of your entire game, you're predicted by an algorithm to see a lot fewer of these water sources. So it's just going to generate a map. It doesn't say that the map has fewer because the maps are huge, right? But it does say that you're less likely to see them over the entire course of your game. If you put it to very high, then you'll see a lot, right? But obviously this depends on the player. So this is the default start. You have everything on medium size. You've got only so for water's a little different. In the size options, you have only in starting area, which you can determine the size of your starting area here. So that will say that you only get water one time and you can never get it from anywhere else. Or you can say very small, small, medium, big, very big. And those are obvious as to what they mean. And then the rest of these just have none, very small, small, medium, big, or very big. And in order to beat the game without cheating, you can't put any of these on none. Because if you have no enemy bases, then you can never do purple science, which you need to beat the game. If you don't have oil, you can't make plastic, you can't make sulfur, any of these things. If you don't have coal, you can't. Nope. I was gonna say I think you can beat it without coal, but you can't because plastic takes coal, and red circuits take plastic, and you need red circuits to beat the game. So all of these you can't put on none, but you can change them to very small if you want a harder game where you have fewer resources, or you can change them to very big if you want an easier game where you have more resources. Same with this richness. That just means how much of everything. So if you have very poor richness, then when you make an iron patch, when the game generates an iron patch for you, each individual tile of iron is going to have a lot fewer uh, amounts of iron in it. Okay, so maybe on this regular richness, each iron tile has 500 iron. Well, if that's the case, then on this very poor richness, instead of having 500, they'll have like 200. So if you put this richness to very poor, then you're going to make the game harder. If you put it to very good, you're going to make the game easier. Um, and it's not incredibly easier. It's not like if you make all of these very good and very big, then your game is going to be a breeze. It's still going to take, a long time and a lot of effort, but it definitely helps. Um, so the easiest setup that I think is you enable peaceful mode. This means the biters, because those are the enemies, the biters, they'll never attack you unless you attack them. And you eventually do have to attack them because you need to get purple science, which you get from killing biter bases. Um, so you can enable peaceful mode, which automatically makes the game incredibly easy compared to what it. I'm not going to say incredibly easy. I'm going to say um, a lot less. There's no fighting. You don't have to research military. You don't have to build tanks. You don't have to build turrets or walls. Like the first time I ever played, I was in peaceful mode for probably the first 50 hours I played this game, and I had no idea how to build a wall even after playing the game for 50 hours because I never needed them. So if you enable peaceful mode, you'll never need walls. You'll never need to upgrade your military, all of that. This enable replay option, if you're not going to update your version of Factorio, because the game is still in beta at the moment that I'm making this video, the game is still not at an official release yet. 0.15 is going to be the official release, which is the next release, so we're really close. But if you don't ever update your Factorio, then you can enable this replay, and what that does is when you finish the game, you can save your replay, and then you can come back later and do that replay game option and watch your game. So the easiest world that you can generate, I think, is you want normal frequency water, and then all of these on very low, which seems to be counterintuitive, right? Because you want a lot of iron ore and a lot of copper, right? But if you put these on very low, then that means you're going to run into a lot fewer of them. And we leave this on medium just because water isn't a very rare resource. It's not something that you need a lot of. So if you leave it on medium, then it's the perfect balance between having enough of it and it getting in the way, because water gets in the way a lot. So if you leave it on medium, I think that's the best choice. These enemy bases put to very low as well, just so you don't have to deal with as many. Actually, I think very low is a good choice. The only problem is, since they never attack you, you need them eventually. So you don't want to put this to none, because then you'll never get purple science, so you can't ever beat the game. So you want to leave, I guess you can leave this on very low, yeah. And then for these sizes, you put them all to very big, because that way the few patches that you do see are going to be huge, and that's really helpful. You can put this enemy bases to very big. The only problem is if you make very big enemy bases, sometimes you get a little cramped if you're playing on peaceful with these biters, and you might accidentally shoot them and then they get very aggressive and they kill you, right? So if you have a very big enemy base, then that's going to make it even harder. So maybe just leave it on medium and very low. You can make your starting area very big, and that'll give you a lot of room with these things in it. You up these richnesses to very good on all of them, and that way you don't have to build as many outposts and things, even the enemy bases, because that just means they're going to drop more alien artifacts, which is what you use to make purple science. So you put everything on very good, very big for everything, except enemy bases, very low for all of these, and normal frequency for water. Enemies never attack first. Enable the replay if you want to watch it again, or not. This doesn't make the game any easier. You leave these empty so that your map can be infinitely big, and which is pseudo-infinite, right? Because you can't actually make an infinitely big map. You leave the map seed empty, or you can put one in, it doesn't matter. The map seed is what the game uses to generate everything. We'll leave it empty, and then we'll leave the map exchange string empty as well. And we'll go ahead and generate this. And I'll just show you a couple of the basics to the game. So this pops up the tips and tricks, and it says other products made in Furnace. These need to be updated, actually, these two pictures, because that's not what this isn't what steel looks like anymore. This isn't what, I think that's stone bricks. Those don't look like this anymore, right? So they need to update this. But this kind of teaches you some things that you can do. Like, there's two sides of belt. There's a left and a right side, right? You can rebuild stone furnaces with steel furnaces without needing to mine the stone furnaces first. It's called fast replacing, I guess. So they've got a bunch of tips and tricks that you can go through if you want to know a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to check this to not show them at the start of the game again because it's annoying and I know all this stuff already. So let me close it, and you're presented with this screen that says, "This is the Factorio free play. Your task is to launch a rocket into space. Do this by constructing a rocket silo and launching a rocket with a satellite." That's important to remember. You will need to research advanced technologies in order to unlock the rocket silo. Start small, work your way up with automation, and don't forget to protect yourself from the natives. Because we enabled peaceful mode, we don't need to protect ourselves from the natives. So then you press tab, and that goes away. And then the first thing that happens is you're placed in your starting area, and this is what everything looks like. You won't have this FPS UPS thing, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. But to get out of the game, you press escape, and then you can save, you can quit. This is just a menu. You can restart, which just restarts your map at the same settings that you gave it at the beginning. You press E to open your inventory, and it will show you what you have, and it'll give you a little crafting screen. And these things on the crafting screen, if it's grayed out like this, it means you don't have the materials for it. Like this wooden chest, we don't have any wood because we've only got 8 iron plates. And if you look down here, this is your toolbar. We've only got a burner mining drill and a stone furnace. That's what you start with. So none of this, we don't have any wood, so we can't build a wooden chest. But we do have iron, so we can build an iron chest, right? But we're not going to. We can build this transport belt. We can build these burner inserters. This number means how many you can build. So we have 8 iron plate, which means we can only build 1 iron chest because the recipe calls for 8 iron plate. And that storage size 32 tells you how many of these squares it has in storage. So this wooden chest is smaller. It's got half as many, 16. But this one's got 32. And eventually there is a bigger chest called a steel chest. But we can't see that yet because we don't have the research. This is an inserter. We can't build that. We can build pipes. This red box means that you can't make it by hand. So we can build any of this by hand because it's all gray, but we can't make this in our hands because stone bricks you have to smelt. So you have to use either a stone furnace like this one or the 2 better furnaces that you can get later in the game. If we change to the production tab, this shows an iron axe, which increases your mining speed, repair packs, all these things. These are intermediate products. You can't make iron plates or copper plates by hand. You have to smelt them. And then this is the combat tab, which has like weapons, ammo. It'll have armor in here. Um, Eventually, the rocket silo and the satellite are found on this tab. Um, you can search, I guess. So let's type firearm. So we start to type firearm and it shows us a firearm magazine, right? You can search circuit and it will show you electronic circuits, right? So I guess you can search the crafting screen, which is going to be helpful if you, because by the end of it there are a lot of things that you can craft. So if you don't know where to find something, just click right here, type science, boom, science packs. So that's the inventory screen. You press E to get rid of it. E opens and closes your inventory. E also, if you have something else open, like if you press P, it'll open your production tab. Right now we're not producing anything, right? Because we just started, we haven't even moved. This will show you production tab. You can vary it by amounts of time. But right now we haven't produced anything, so it's got nothing in it. And to close this window, we press E. And P works, but if you press P, you can press E to close it. If you press P and open this window, you can click and drag, so you can move this wherever you want it. And then when you close it and reopen it, it pops back up in the default spot. So if we move it way up here, and then we close it, it opens back here. We open our inventory, we can do the same thing, close it, open it, pops up back here. If you look in the top right, you'll see press T to start a new research, so let's do that. T. This opens the technology tree, which is what T stands for. And you've got two colors over here, but there are three that you can have. So if you have this, I'm colorblind, so I think this is yellow, but it could be like green or like brown. But whatever color this is, if you have these color squares, it means you have all the research before it researched. So this is a base research, so you can automatically start researching it. All of these are basic researches. But then these red ones mean that you need to research something else before you can research them. Like this is automation 2, which requires you to research automation first. And it'll tell you available. This one says unavailable, right? If you click on a research, it'll show you the cost, the time needed to research one unit in the lab, as well as how many science packs you need. A lab is a building, and these science packs are what you put in the building, and it makes science happen, right? And then these effects are what you get after you've researched it. So this is an assembling machine. This is a long-handed inserter. If we press E, it'll close that window. We press E again, it opens our crafting screen. If we look in the production tab, we don't have the assembling machine, right? That's because we haven't researched this. So once we research this, this will pop up in our crafting screen in this tab, the production tab. Let's see, what else? If you click research, it'll show you what you're researching up here, and this black bar will slowly turn green as you research it. You can change research just like that. And if you have progress towards a research, let's change back to this. If you have progress towards this, and then you're like, oh wait, I want this one before that one, and you switch, it'll remember how far you were in the other one, and when you switch back, you can keep going. So, some of these other menus, this is your normal menu when you press escape. This is your production. You can click this button, or you can press P. This is bonuses, which will tell you like if your lab research speed is faster than normal. You can close this with E, or you can click here again, and really you'll pretty much never open this. But like all the other windows, you can drag it, close it, open it again, and it's in the middle. This will show you the map, which we should look at. If you press M, it'll show you the map. If you scroll up, it'll zoom in on your cursor. So if I scroll out by I zoom out by scrolling down. If I put my mouse up here by these purple things and I scroll in, it'll zoom in on that. If I scroll out and then I scroll in on my name, it'll zoom in on me, right? You press M again to close it, and then press M one more time, and it recenters. So if I'm over here, and I'm like, oh crap, or if I go way over here, and I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know, I zoomed all the way out, I can't see my map. I press M, press it again, and you're back, and you can just zoom back in. And then, voila, you're back to normal. You can zoom out in the real game the same way. You just scroll out. This is as far out as you can see, which is pretty far actually, but sometimes you build things that are bigger than this, so you'll need to see further. You can zoom in pretty far as well, but it makes the textures start to look a bit worse, but that's okay. There is a default zoom level, but I don't think there's a way to reset to that zoom. You just stick with one you like. I like about this far. I zoom out a lot to look at things. I zoom in not much further than this most of the time, unless I'm like looking at something really interesting, I guess. Okay, so let's talk about how you use things. So this toolbar down here can be accessed by your keys, your number keys at the top of your keyboard. So if you press 1, then you'll hold in your hand whatever's in the 1 slot. If you press 2, you'll switch to the 2 slot. If you press 3, you'll switch to nothing because there's nothing in the 3 slot. So let's press 1, and then because it's red, it means we can't place it here. If we go too far, oh wait. So as long as it's red, you can't place it. If you press R, it'll rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. And then because this is a burner mining drill, we need to put it on top of some ore. So let's put it on top of this copper ore, and let's face outward. And then what you do is you just left click, and it places it. Now it's giving us a little warning that says, hey, this thing needs fuel. That's why it's a little gas pump. And you open the drill to look inside it by left clicking, and you can see it's got a fuel slot, and this is the product that it's going to make. So if you put fuel in there, then this will turn green, or this will turn red as it goes down and runs out of fuel, right? And this will turn green until you get a copper, and then it'll restart, right? If you right click, you can pick things up. You mine it back up, right? And then if you take this out and you have a certain reach. So if I want to place it here, I can because it's green. But if I want to place it here, I can't. Even though it goes on ore, I can't reach this far. So I'd need to walk closer if I wanted to place it there. I could place it up to this far away. And then, so if you do that, if you do try to place it too far, you'll hear a noise, which means you can't do that. So to mine things, that means like pick something up, you right click, that's mining. If you want to mine ore, you right click, that's mining. But if you'll notice, this bar at the bottom is going super slow because we don't have any tools. We don't have a pickaxe. These are your slots of your character. So if we go into the crafting screen, we go over to production, we can build an iron axe, which is the first thing you're going to want to build. So go ahead and build one. And then when we right click, things go a lot faster, see? And that +1 copper ore means that we just collected, a copper ore. So let's put this down, facing out, and then let's put this directly in front of it. And what this is going to do, if you look closely, yeah, there we go, put the light on it. If you look closely, there's a little tube coming out of this that goes into this, and that means that while this mines, it'll put stuff in this. As long as there's an empty slot for the resource, it'll put the resource in there, right? So if we press Alt, it'll show you additional information, which is this little arrow that says, hey, I'm putting my stuff into this furnace. Also, when you have Alt, it'll show pollution on your mini-map. What else does Alt do? It'll show like where where miners are getting rid of stuff. If you have something in this furnace, like if we put copper in here, it'll show a copper plate, which is the product that we're going to be making if we had fuel. So let's pick these up. It's a good idea to have Alt on most of the time so that you can see what you're doing, but sometimes it can be a little annoying and get in the way. So you press WASD to move, like any other game. Let's find some. Okay, so here's a tree. This is a dead gray trunk. You right click to chop it down. You get 2 wood, right? Wood, when you hover over it, shows a fuel value, which means that if I place something that needs fuel, this drill, I can left click to pick this up. If I right click, it'll put 1 down, which automatically gets consumed. If I click it, open this, and left click, it'll put the entire stack in here. So you can't put copper ore in here because it's not fuel. But if I had more than 1 raw wood, you would see that I can put like 50 in there. And then this burner drill, if I hit Alt again, you can see there's a little piece of iron ore on the ground. That's where it put it. If you press F, you pick up things that are on the ground. So now I've got an iron ore in my inventory. That smoke coming out is pollution, which is a very important concept in this game. Let's see, what else is there to teach you? Eventually you'll get to make power. So let's hurry and make, let's get some raw wood so that we can get some copper. Actually, we don't need that, we just need this. Oh, not fuel. I meant to put it in the top one. So this is how you smelt. You put a resource up top, fuel on the bottom, you get a plate. And we can make this a small electric pole, which shows a coverage area, is that blue square, or green, I don't know. And you click, and it places it, and now it's blue for sure. And you can, whatever you put in there is going to be affected by the electricity that this pole has. If you left click on the pole, it'll open your electric network info, which shows you how much production you have, your accumulator charge, which is a later item in the game, and the satisfaction. So when this is all green, that means you've got enough being produced. This production will fluctuate while you have the ability to make more than you need. If this production is all the way full and this satisfaction is yellow, that means you need to build more power producing machines, such as steam engines. That's the electric network info. If you click on this, it'll open your trains menu, but we have no trains yet. You can search them by name, but we don't have any. And it'll show you a little picture of like what your train looks like on the mini map. Press E to close it, or click here. These will show you the achievements, which you can go through and look at. If you click this, it'll start tracking, and then it'll say what you need to do, and then once you do it, this will turn green. So like if I try to track I guess I can't track an achievement I already have. But if you try to track something like this, where you need to produce so many of something, it'll tell you how many you've produced so far. It'll give you a progress bar and show how many you need to produce. I think you can drag these around. No, you can't. So these, and if you have multiple, they'll just stack on top of each other going down. We've almost got that one. And then you get a bar if you have too many, I guess. If you hover over something, it'll tell you information about it on the right. Your GUI, which is the graphical user interface, might be a little too big. Your heads-up display, it might also be called. So if you press escape, go to options, graphics. If you click on system default, which yours will be on if you haven't changed anything, and you go back, resume game, then when you hover over things, you might run into the problem where the box on the right that pops up, the one that's not there now but is there now, it will go down into your character slots, and then you can't see some of the information. So what I like to do is press escape, options, graphics, change this slider to 85%, click custom, click back, it'll make everything a little smaller, and 85% for me is still big enough to see everything and be able to read everything. The text doesn't get too small. If you go much further, then the text gets a little hard to read. And if you have a huge, because there's a lot of information that you need to know later on. If you've got a ton of information to know, then even this won't be small enough. But there might be no help for you there once you get to that point. If you press tilde, which is the key next to your 1 key on the left, it'll pop up a command line, which also works as a chat. So if you're on multiplayer, you can say, hey, and it will show. You can do /help, which is a command. You press enter, and it will tell you type H command to get details of it. And here are your available commands. So like an example of a command that we can run that won't, because if you run the wrong command, then your achievements will be disabled because you're cheating, right? So these are commands that you can run without being, without having your achievements being disabled because you cheated. So you can type /color, and it says unknown color because we didn't give it any parameters. So if we do /h space color, it'll give us help about what you can do with color. And it says changes your color, available colors black, blue, brown, cyan, gray, green, orange, pink, purple, right? So I like to do /color cyan, because now if I type, hey, this is really easy to read, and I can read it no matter what I walk over. Like the background behind it isn't going to change it. If you change it to color brown, then you're going to have a hard time if you like walk over stone or something worse. If you do color black, then it's going to be even worse, right? So I like color cyan, but you don't even, and it also changes the color of your guy's outfit. If you press up and down, you can go through previous commands. Color black, now my guy's wearing black, right? So that's like a single player use of the color command. So there are commands you can use. If you press Q and look over here, I guess, let's see. So if you had multiple guns, then pressing Q allows you to switch between which gun you're using. This green shows that I'm using this gun. If I had another gun in this slot, I could press Q to switch between them. If you press space, then right now it's not going to do anything because there's no enemies by your cursor. But if you hold space, then the closest enemy to your cursor, if you have ammo, you'll start shooting at the closest enemy to your cursor. Within like a certain distance, of course. If we place one of these electric power poles and then we mouse over it and hold C, we'll start shooting it, and eventually destroy it, right? And that's a way to get rid of items that you don't want, but it wastes ammo. So you hold C and it'll shoot whatever you're pointing at, right? So if you want to shoot an individual biter, but maybe not the one closest to you, you hold C, or like a building or something. Let's tear this down. Those bars beneath it show its durability. So if I hold, it's only a little hurt right now, but if I hold C, then we start to see it go down, and now it's even more hurt. Now it's halfway dead, right? And eventually it'll break like this and leave that gross stuff on the ground. So you don't want to do that too often. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is this FPS UPS display. If you press F4, it'll bring up the debug settings, and it's got a lot of stuff that you can learn about, like show tile grid right here will show you all the different tiles, but that's if you want to like take a screenshot or something to know how big something is. If you click show FPS, it'll pop up this FPS UPS thing. You can't press E to get rid of this window, but if you press F4 again, it will. FPS stands for frames per second, which is how you see the game. UPS stands for updates per second. This one is the most important because frames per second is just what you see, not what the game is actually doing. But if you're and you want to, for most people will never drop below 60-60 unless you've got a lower end machine that you're playing on, or you build a huge base. Um, but if you do drop below 60-60, there are like mods and things that can help you get above that. Um, and there are even some ways, like you can build some underground transport belts later in the game, and those are easier on the game's processing than a normal belt because it doesn't have to show all the items because they're underground. Um, but most of the time you'll just have 60-60. This is a good way to see uh, if your base has gotten too big, right? Like if your game starts to get a little choppy and you open this, then your FPS will be below 60 definitely, but your UPS will hopefully still be at 60. If it goes below 60, then you're starting to get to some problems. But this will never be a problem for most people. So you press escape, save game, and you can type in a name where you can see all your saves already. You can type in a name like tutorial, and when you click save, it'll save your map, and then you click load game, and it'll show you what game you just saved, and it'll keep track of your games. It'll tell you what mods you have, the map name, which is if you were in a scenario or if you were playing the campaign, this would say campaign or scenario instead of free play. It's your version, your difficulty, and your play time. I'm going to delete this save. Yes, I would like to permanently delete it. Go back, resume, and I think that is it for my basic tutorial. If there's anything that you are not sure about, I'll definitely go more in depth about things like electricity, ratios, trains. I'll make videos about all those things in the future, but this is just the basic intro. I've never played the game before. How do I do it? Type video. And I went a little bit off what I wanted to do, but mostly I think I got everything that you need to know to basically play the game. So if that's it, then thanks for watching.